Today we're going to be going over how to attach a collar with a back neck facing. This is a method used from the late 1940s until today. You have a separate back facing piece instead of a bias facing, which would have been used for earlier time periods. I have video for that on my channel as well. So first you need to use your collar. You've got it all prepped. You've got a back neck facing piece, which is interfaced. You're also going to interface your fronts just past the fold line there. If you are doing bias buttonholes, do this before attaching the collar, but don't finish the back side of them. You are going to put your facing piece right back there on your facing, the front facing piece, so it looks like a whole circle around. Pin it to each other, matching those edges, and then you're going to stitch that using whatever your seam allowance is on your pattern. For this one, it's 5/8 of an inch. So just stitch and don't forget to back stitch. Press it open and it looks like this. See the circle all the way around? Now yours might not have a facing attached. If you have a separate facing piece, that's totally okay. You just want to make sure that you have a big circle opening for your neck, and that's where your collar is going to attach to. I'm using pinking shears for mine. That's a totally period way to use it, but you can do a seam binding, you can finish it by machine, you can finish it by hand, you can use an overcast edge, or you can serge it. So after I did it with my pinking shears, it looked like this. See my circle? It's now stitched into place, so those edges are finished. I'm folding my collar in half to find center back, and then I'm matching center back to the center back of the blouse. I'm going to pin center back first, and then I'm going to take the edges. On your pattern, you'll have a mark for where the edge of your collar should go. On this one, there happens to be a notch that's also right there. So I'm matching the notch, and I'm also matching the marking that I made for center front of my collar. You see there's a little bit of an edge there. That's totally normal. It's so that your collar meets at center front with an overlap. Now I'm easing it in. I'm going to put my shoulder seam there, make sure it's nice and flat. And you will have some to ease in on a collar. That's very, very normal, especially if your fabric is has a little bit of a give. So this one doesn't, it's a linen, but you just ease it, ease it, ease it. Make sure you're using the bias of the fabric to your advantage. And make sure it's even all the way across with no puckering. Now you see the circle, you're going to turn it back on that fold line. I have a mark on mine that is a removable pin. So I'm folding it on the fold line. And now we're sandwiching the collar between the facing and the outside of the blouse. First I'm going to match my shoulder seams. So I'm doing that now, taking out the pin I just put in there, and that's going to make it all sandwiched in there nice. I'm doing the other shoulder seam. And then I'm going to ease it all the way across again. If you need to, you can clip the edge of your facing piece. That's not going to have as much give because it's interfaced. So you would just clip your seam curves like you do on regular sewing. I'm easing it all the way across now, wiggling it with my fingers, taking out those pins I put in the first round and replacing them so that it's all sandwiched nicely. The front of the collar gets a little bit tricky because there's a more drastic curve for the neck, so go nice and slow at those points and try not to get any puckers or any pleats in the fabric. You want it to be nice and smooth. Now I'm going to stitch that with my seam allowance all the way across. Don't forget to backstitch. Here it is all stitched. Now I'm going to clip my corners. Before you do this, make sure you didn't get any stitching that you need to unpick. If you need to unpick it, go back and do it again. Then you're going to trim your seam allowance down. And then you're going to clip your curves so it lays nice and flat. Of course, don't clip your stitching line. Ask me how I know. And then you're going to push the points out so that your centers are nice like that. Or I'm sorry, the overlap, not the center. Looks really nice. So push it out with your finger. If you need to, you can use a point turner. Wiggle, 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 so it's nice and smooth. After it's pressed, it looks like this. We're not quite done yet though. I want you to stitch your facing to your shoulder seam, matching those seam lines. Do this by hand so it doesn't show from the outside. Really simple little Couple loops there so it doesn't show. Sorry, it's kind of blurry. There we go. Just make a knot and it looks so professional and so nice when it's all finished. There it is, all done. You can see how it's finished. The facings look nice. It opens up really nicely, it lays nice and flat, and the collar will close exactly at center front there, so the two meet right in the middle of your neck. You can find my patterns at Wearing History on Etsy, also on wearinghistory.clothing, and Wearing History blog is where I post a lot of tutorials and free content. Thanks for watching.